And if you weren't here last week and you wanted the first half of this commercial, the other half is on the piano over there. Here comes Jill. I can go home now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jill is, by the way, the savior of the diocese.
Oh, geez.
And my personal savior. Because she is putting together, under great stress, all the travel for the walkabouts for the bishops, the potential new bishop. So we have a long, complex schedule.
It is a little, which Bill, by the way, put together. I am just hiring a
Thanks
bus
to
for it
Jill.
right around
So
that.
what you should put on your calendar is the walkabouts will start on Sunday the 13th. Look at the diocesan website. If you've signed up, they'll push the information to you. But on Sunday, we'll be at St. Paul's Cathedral, starting with the Eucharist, and then do the walkabouts. And by the way, there's 6 locations for the walkabouts. And the last one on the 18th is here at St. Bart's during the day. Okay? So, and all the formats are the same. It starts out with a 30-minute plenary session, okay, where each candidate will get the opportunity to talk for 5 minutes about why they think they're called to be here. And then there'll be 3 rooms, and the candidates for half an hour will circulate through those 3 rooms. So it doesn't matter what room you're in, okay? And we've been asking people to submit questions now for several months. And we've got about 90 questions that we have a team of people boiling down and reducing to kind of get to a common core. And your follow-up questions will be allowed. So that's an important event to go see these candidates. And Susan Brown Snook is from Scottsdale, Arizona. She was a church planter there. And then we have Michael Tenen, who is the priest in charge at St. David's, and Roy Hoffman. You know Roy from here, right? So,
Roy? It's exciting, yeah.
yeah.
He might be our bishop. Father
Yeah,
Brown.
it's a chance.
Oh, cool.
Roy, no chance.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. So there's what's interesting is you may not know this. 113 dioceses, about 113 dioceses. 21 are looking for new bishops.
Wow.
So the whole House of Bishops is going through a change. We're going to see more women in it. We're going to see a whole bunch of new faces in it over time. So we'll just see what happens. But I think it's important for you to come and see that because also you can, even if you like someone, it's appropriate to go to your delegates in your congregation and say, I like this person because, and I encourage you to vote for him or her. It means that you can't influence that. You can't influence that. So I'm going to be gone for that week. I'm going to be riding the bus with Jill.
There'll be no happy hour on this bus.
No happy hour on this bus.
Is there a location?
I don't know how I'm going to live through the week without happy hour on the bus. I think I'm going to need happy hour on the bus with this one.
Is there a location that's more convenient for us in North County, or?
This one, right
Okay,
here.
gotcha. Oh, sorry.
Right here.
Yeah, on the 18th.
We have locations all over. St. Paul's Cathedral for downtown. And then we go out to Coachella Valley. We go to St. John's in Indio, to St. Margaret's. Okay. Then we came back on Tuesday to St. Timothy's up in Temecula, which will be clergy only. From there we go down to St. Peter's, okay, for the coastal location. On Wednesday morning they go to the office of the bishop, the Episcopal Church Center, to see that because it's unique and they do some good work. In the afternoon they go to a Hispanic ministry church, which is St. Philip's. On Thursday they go to St. John's, Chula Vista, okay, and then on Friday they come here, and then they're done.
In the bishop's school.
And the bishop school, yeah. The first time we've ever taken them to the bishop school. But the bishop school is one of the most prominent schools in the country. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
And the bishop is chairman of the board, basically, or president. So, and if you got $35,000 a year to send your child there, it's perfect. But they have, it really is a very prestigious school, very prestigious school. So,
Will it be pretty much the same format at all the locations?
exactly the same format as these, exactly the same. Everyone will start with a 30-minute plenary session, okay? And in that plenary session, each one will get 5 minutes to say why they want to be bishop, okay? Then you can go off to one of 3 rooms. Doesn't matter which one you go to, this will be one of the rooms, and the candidates will circulate through the 3 rooms, answering a set of questions that have been asked via the website. So you can go to any room you want, you won't miss anything. So that's good. So I encourage you to, if you've not seen this process, or not gone through this process, I encourage you to go do it and be a part of it. It's a big deal, you know, because bishops are elected for life, right? So it takes a lot of thought. But we have 3 good candidates. They're all good candidates. They're all good candidates. Okay, this. The tomb of Mary and Martha. If we go to Bethany, and what you'll see, Lazarus is also venerated by Muslims, as he's in the Quran. Did you know that? Matter of fact, a very large part of the Quran is the Hebrew Bible. Okay, and they venerate Jesus as well, but they venerate Jesus as a saint and a prophet, not as the Son of God. Okay, so if you go where Lazarus is, there's a mosque on top of where you find Lazarus' tomb, and they maintain it, and that's one of the things we see more and more is more and more Palestinians and Muslims buying these properties and running them, right, Jill? And if you look at this, you go down in this little door over here, you go down this staircase, and if you see this little notch here, you go down in there and you can be supposedly where Lazarus was called out from by Jesus. And the most exciting thing can be there's always a camel ride outside. I knew you'd be interested in that, right?
Oh, yeah. Sign me up.
The camel
Ready to
ride.
go.
The camel ride.
And I have a great picture of Karen riding, but that was in Jericho, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, that was certainly a mistake. I didn't know that he was gonna, stand up.
Well, I'll tell you, when you sit on, I did it in Petra, when you sit on top of the camel, you don't realize how high off the ground you are.
No, that's right.
But I encourage you to take a camel ride. You know, it's a good thing to do, Bobby. You love it. You love it.
It's a camel race, Bobby.
So
Camel
anyway,
No racing.
so this is this is a great place to visit. It's really different when you try to get down there. My favorite place over there is here, Qumran. It's by the Dead Sea, and the reason is because that's probably where the Essenes were, the Jewish sect that retreated to the desert, and 220 scrolls have been found there. And also, when you go look carefully, and you see how they did it. I mean, they had long writing tables that are still there. They had running water through ditches and such, and concrete, or stone, actually, stone. Okay, and it's really exciting to see that. And I know I've told you the story before that my Hebrew Bible professor, James Sanders, was one of the scholars who opened those scrolls, the Psalm scrolls in particular. So this is a great place to go and see this, because this is really an incredible piece of history. Okay, and they found everything except for Esther and Nehemiah, the last 2 books. So imagine that, going back 2,000 years. That's pretty impressive. Okay. So if you look at this picture, you'll see that the structures aren't there anymore, but all the substructures are there. And so you can see the writing tables when you're there. You can see how they lived. They've recreated all of that. And the other thing you get a chance to do is, when you go there, is you get a chance to swim in the Dead Sea. I know you'll all wanna do that.
Or you can be a spectator up on the hill with me.
Or, yeah, yes, drinking an adult beverage.
Yes. And they are there.
We are
But
there.
they do have changing rooms, by the way, for those of you who are going. They're really, take your suit.
And of course, the salt content is very, 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 very high. You know, so it's easy to float when you're there. And it will be quite warm. It will be quite warm. Okay?
The water?
Yeah.
Maybe like 80?
Yeah, it'll be quite warm. Be quite warm, and it's very muddy, right? And sometimes the mud's hard to get off. So you can come back with a little something extra. But the Dead Sea is very cool when you go down there, and it's an interesting ride when you go down there. So 220 scrolls were found at Qumran, okay? They found all the Psalms, they found Deuteronomy, they found everything except Esther and Nehemiah, okay? But they found one other scroll. It's called the Copper Scroll. And this was a scroll that was etched onto a copper sheet. And what's interesting about it, when it was translated, it's translated as a treasure map. And there have been many books written by conspiracy theorists and what have you, using the Copper Scroll to try to find the hidden treasure that may have been hidden by the Essenes. So maybe you want to look that up. This Copper Scroll is really very, very interesting. And there are people looking for treasure that supposedly the Copper Scroll guided you to. So if you have nothing else to do, you can be treasure hunters on this trip as well, which you'll find exciting, I know. I know.
Indiana Jones style.
Indiana Jones, yeah, yeah.
Right, so it says that 1/4 of the scrolls found at Qumran were biblical. What, and then there's this Copper Scroll. What were the other 3/4?
A lot of other, what I would say is non-biblical scrolls, like the rules for how to live your life, things like how the Essenes lived and what their polity was, what the laws were for living in Qumran, things like that. And they do a really good job of showing you all of this. But one of the most interesting is this Copper Scroll. This is an example. That's the only Copper Scroll that there was. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that you'll find there. And the originals are in the Israeli Museum.
And I think we do have a short
Yeah.
visit there.
When you go to and you had a short visit at the Israeli Museum, and what they have there also that I love is they've got, you'll like this, Mark, they have a model of early Jerusalem,
Yeah. Huge.
about 2 feet
outside.
off the ground, highly detailed of what Jerusalem looked like 2,000 years ago. And then when you go to the museum itself, that's where the originals are. So you can really get a chance to see and that's a pretty fascinating thing to go do. But they found a lot of stuff there. The baptismal site, you're not going to Jordan, but there's been great debate on which side of the Jordan River Jesus was baptized on. Most scholars think Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist on the Jordan side, okay? Others think it's on the Israeli side, and that the Israelites actually pushed the fact that he was baptized on the Israelite side, on the west side of the Jordan, because it was a better marketing ploy, right? Because that's where all the people were. And if you go to that side, which you'll stop at, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we go to the newer Israel site now.
Yeah.
Because it's a little calmer.
Okay,
It doesn't
but-
have the rent a road.
The rent the robe, yeah, because if you're on the west side, you can rent a robe,
And
And
have
you
a
can-
coffee.
and
have a coffee.
have a coffee.
And if
you
you're
can-
wearing a collar, you get your coffee free.
Yeah, if you're wearing a collar, you get your coffee free. I only wear my collar over there to get stuff for free. And it works. And it works. You know. The other thing is when you see see the Jordan River, you might be surprised, because it looks like a muddy stream. It's nothing like it was 2,000 years ago. You'll find a lot of these banks have overwhelmed it. Okay, but you're not going to go to the Jordan side, right? Right. So anyway, but you can see from these pictures, it's pretty muddy and there's not much there. It used to flow very freely. I forget, how much do they charge for a white robe? I don't remember. You know, and you get these people wanting to be baptized by immersion. How many times do you have to be baptized?
Once.
Once. Unless if you come into the church or a church or another church, if you were baptized by, in some denominations, such as in the Church of the Latter-day Saints, we wouldn't think that counted, because baptism to them means something entirely different, okay? But this is, if you go to page 31 here, this is very political about where this baptismal site actually was, okay? That the Israelites, or Israel actually moved it, okay, to the other side. Tiberias and St. George's, do you know where you're staying yet, Jill?
We're staying in the Golden Mount. Does anybody else remember the name of it? It's new to me hotel. So but it's in the west. It's in West Jerusalem. I mean East Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem,
Yeah,
okay.
East Jerusalem.
Tiberias is up on the north side of the Sea of Galilee. And St. George's is right there as well. St. George's is great. You know what bishop was there for many years was Bishop Cafidi, right? And you've been there with Bishop Cafidi actually, Karen, right? You actually
Yes.
did that, which was kind of an experience because you see his picture and name plastered all over the place, right?
And he was held in such high regard.
Yes.
And everyone on our tour was held in high regard because we were with him.
Yeah.
We got a lot of extra perks.
Yeah, yeah. I can believe that. But you know, St. George's is the cathedral for, it's part of the Episcopal Church. And what's interesting, it covers all 5 countries over there in the Middle East. Okay, that's the seat for the bishop in those 5 countries. And you'll get a chance to meet the dean, Bishop Dean Duarte here, who's a very nice guy, by the way. And he usually does a little Q&A thing for you.
Yes, we hope to have an audience with him prior to.
You get an audience
service.
with him, you can ask him questions, he's very knowledgeable. He was here when we did the memorial for Bishop Cafidi, okay? But he's really a very, very nice guy. I know it's very hard to get to stay at St. George's Guest House, it's almost impossible. You gotta probably make reservations 2 years at least in advance, and that may not be enough. And you gotta make a commitment, so if you make the commitment, and for some reason or other, people don't go, you've got a financial problem. But it is a great place to stay, and they got a terrific wine bar downstairs too.
They do now, yes.
They do, it's brand new. But you're gonna get a chance to worship at St. George's, I think,
Yes.
right?
And you should be able to walk here if you wanna go back down there, yeah. And we'll be near the old city too, so you can walk there.
The old city is only a few blocks away when you're at St. George's. So that's a nice thing to know. It's right near the garden too. But I think that's one place you really enjoy going. And the dean is great. He's really great, okay, Hussam. And he's very knowledgeable about the Middle East. So you can ask him questions, and he really knows it quite well. And he knows us here at St. Bart's quite well, because he's been here several times. So it won't be any surprise, and they always treat our tours from St. Bart's quite well when he goes over there. The bishop there is Duani. His name is Sawil Duani. He's the bishop there for a number of years. He was the successor to Bishop Cafidi. My guess is you won't get a chance to meet him, but you may if he's around. But just look at this little map on the bottom. When you think about the diocese of Jerusalem, okay, it covers Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Israel, and even Iraq. Think about that area, think about Christendom, it's 39 congregations and 7,000 members. And that's really interesting, 7,000 members in all those countries, that's all that's there,
Yeah.
right? And it's getting smaller, it's getting smaller. But he's really a very, very, matter of fact, he used to come over here quite frequently, and that's when I had met him several times at Bishop Graffiti's house, okay, and when the Jacques was there. So worshiping at St. George is really special, because when you think about where it is and what it does. And they have a lot of ministries going for kids and for education and feeding children and clinics and rehab centers. Are you going to be going over to Ramallah to the school?
Yes, we will have lunch at
Like
the
last-
vocational school, yes.
They have they set up under Graffiti. They set they built a school that was designed to teach teenagers and young adults basic skills like cooking, electrical repair, painting, masonry, things like that. And this school, when you go in, you see a big picture of Graffiti there, okay? It does that and really gives these people some hope, because it gives them a way they can earn a living. And if you're going to do that, that's great. They always, not always, but the way Jill has set it up, offer a lunch that they've cooked at the school for you, and
Right.
they're very proud of it, that they've done this for their American guests who come over who know Bishop Graffiti. And it's usually appropriate, Jill will work it out, but to give them a little gratuity, a little thank you for doing that from the group, not necessarily from individuals. But that's kind of special, to be on the West Bank and be in Ramallah and see that part of the world, which a lot of people don't see. The thing I find most interesting about it is the fact that when you go there and you experience it, and you've been to Ramallah or been to the West Bank or seen the wall, Israel's got a wall, okay? And it's got more sensor technology on it than you can shake a stick at. But when you go there and then you hear about these places on the news, you really can relate to some of the persecution that the Palestinian Christians are under. You know, like if they get a visa to go out of the country and come back and they miss it even by an hour, they can't come back into the country. So it's a relatively hard life. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, but I do, you probably talked about Bethlehem last
Go ahead.
session,
Go ahead.
but I do make a point of having us walk part of the wall. I think it's important to see the 26-foot wall, and we'll go down to Claire's house again. Claire owns a B&B there and a gift shop, and her house was taken over during the Second Intifada, and the soldiers actually moved into her house for 3 weeks, and she talks a little bit about that. She's a Christian, and she refuses to leave. She's
Yeah, and that wall is something, 20 some odd feet high.
yeah.
And like I said, Mark, it's got sensor technology all over it. You know, motion sensors, radars, what have you. And when you come back from the West Bank to go through the wall, it's really interesting, because you get stopped and the Israeli Defense Forces get on the bus with their Uzis and M16s and look at passports and such. So you talk about a wall, they got a wall.
What's it made of?
What?
What's it made of? Material?
It's cement.
Cement.
Concrete?
Yeah, concrete.
Yeah, it's concrete. And and there's that one gift shop that's right there on the other side that we usually stop in. There are some great gift shops that are ran by Palestinian Christians.
Yes. Co-ops. Yeah.
Excuse-
Co-ops of family
Co-ops.
co-ops.
Yeah.
And we will go to one. We always.
Yeah, and that's the place that Jill will help you with this. If you want to buy some nice things to bring back, that's the place to do it. I like to bring back a lot of little stuff, you know, but like things that you can give away for gifts to people, and all kinds of little pouches and things that are easy to pack and easy to bring back, you know. But they'll ship if you want. They'll ship more significant things back. But a lot of the places are selling junk. You don't want to just listen to her. Okay? A lot of the places have junk. but
Also,
there's-
be able to say no. it's fine, you can say no. They're not big barterers there, I find, not like in Turkey and other places, but be prepared to say no if you're not interested, it's fine.
I think you'll be fascinated, we talked about it last week, when you walk the Stations of the Cross. You know, when you think how we build Stations of the Cross here, usually in beautiful scenic environments and gardens and, you know, like we have up in Temecula and that, and you think this is very peaceful and this is absolutely lovely. And then you go walk the stations in the old city, and instead of going through a bazaar in Tijuana,
Yeah.
with them selling everything you can imagine and everyone trying to sell you everything that you can imagine, right? So that's
So it's a mob scene.
it's a mob scene. Yeah, and you'll have your choice to carry a cross. A lot of people do it, which is quite a thing to go do. And it ends in the church down there, which is where the last 4 stations are. And you can wait and get online to see the tomb, which they've recently excavated. And they've carbon dated it to 2,000 years ago. They actually carbon dated it back that far. So that's fascinating itself. And the thing that always amazes me, you go to these beautiful historic sites, and the conflict between the various denominations who are trying to maintain these properties are incredible. Because no one wants to give up anything to the other. The Orthodox don't want to give it up to the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox don't want to give it up to the Friars, don't want to give it up to the Jesuits and the Roman Catholics.
And the Ethiopians.
And the
And the
Ethiopians.
Argo.
Matter of fact, you'll point out the ladder if
Yes.
it's still there. Tell them about the ladder. They won't believe. They
No.
won't believe it if I tell them.
I'm not sure I can tell it, so you tell it.
Well, when you get there, you'll see a wooden ladder between 2 stories, and no one knows how the ladder really got there. But because it crosses between the Ethiopians and the Greek Orthodox places that they manage, okay, they can't agree on who's supposed to take it down. So, isn't it wonderful how Christianity comes together? And there's always a great place. You do the photo op for them on the steps.
Yes, that's a great place.
There's the entrance, there's a staircase there. Everyone can sit on and get a great photo op there.
It's my favorite church in the whole world, and I've been in a lot of churches, but the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, I usually try to go back a second time by myself, and you'll have some opportunity to do that if you like. There's also National Geographic, I think it is, has an amazing DVD of something that I was able to see in DC when I was last there a few months ago, of, it's a rendition of the church and how they've excavated it and all. And it's done in 3D. It's hard to explain, but try to, in fact, I'll bring that someday. I should share it with you. I just got it.
Okay.
It's really quite remarkable. And to be in there, in this exhibit in DC is remarkable. And so, and you're kind of watching it and as part of it. It's hard to explain, so I'll
It's
share
also,
it one of these days.
the thing that I've always been amazed at, you see these CFL light bulbs hanging all over the place. You'd expect to see candles in a place like this, something a little more that you could relate to. Well, the reason they use CFLs and regular light on cords hanging from the ceiling. And you say, what's that all about? They're afraid of fire. So you won't see candles except in very rare occasions.
Yeah.
Right?
Easy.
Bill, have you ever been on the roof of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre?
No.
There is first of all, it's covered with domes, small domes. But there's a group of people that live up there, and they have been denied access to within the church for the past 400 years. It's just one of the more
I didn't know
strange
that.
things about this. Is also on a National Geographic thing.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
we had a tour guide give us a walk across the top of the church.
Wow.
It was really quite interesting because we'd never been up. Well, most people had never been up there before.
That's worthwhile taking a note about, that we can talk to the
Yeah, I
guide
will.
about that.
I will. I
Yeah.
will. Thank you.
It was
That's
towards the end
worthwhile.
of the Via de la Rosa, and we all had clothespins attached to us, colored clothespins, because there was such a mass of people, and our guide had to pick us out as a mass of people moving down. He had to get every one of his group from within there. It was like fishing amongst all these people
Yeah.
to grab them to go up the staircase that took us up to the top.
It can be very crowded. That's one reason why I like going in February. The weather's not quite as nice and warm, but
Yeah.
it's less crowded,
Yeah.
and so it'll be easier to see. Thank you. Thank you.
That's a good point.
There's the
Yeah.
ladder.
What's that?
There's the ladder.
Do you have a picture of it?
Yeah, there's the ladder.
I'll be there.
Yeah, you thought I was kidding. You had it as the ladder. What does it say? What does it say?
Well, that's the immovable ladder and legacy. Hold on, let me, the removable ladder, the Holy Sepulchre made of cedar wood and pictured here. Hold on. Yeah, that's just first mentioned in 1757, has remained in the location since the 18th century. It's immovable due to an understanding that no cleric from the 6 ecumenical Christian orders may move, rearrange, or alter any property without the consent of the 5 other orders.
There you go. There you go. It's crazy.
Sounds like Congress. Oh, sorry.
It is. You see the ladder.
That's okay.
So that's very,
There
very
you
cool.
go.
But the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is, I think, one of my favorite churches.
Very
One of
special.
my favorite churches.
Yeah.
It's very special. Yeah. And especially since National Geographic did this article and they carbon dated things and took it all apart and put it back together. You know, we're pretty confident that maybe that's not where Calvary was, but that it's as old as they had said it was. More churches, the Visitation Church of the Magnificat and Church of St. John the Baptist. You can find the church, you get tired of looking at churches. You get tired of looking at churches and you get tired of eating falafel and hummus. Right? But there's a lot of interesting places that our guides, which is St. George's, is very good, and Jill, know for lunch. So you can really get a chance to experience the local culture in a way that you might not otherwise be able to experience it. And it's all quite safe, so you don't have to worry about that.
Are these places claustrophobic though?
Some, to be honest, like you go to Lazarus' tomb, and the door to get in is about that big, you know, and you can go down these steps that are carved out of the rock that are about 2 feet wide, and turn as they go and are very uneven, so there's some of that. And we've gone in the past and people have stayed in the bus. Yeah, and that's okay, but you know, give it a whack.
Yeah, I haven't gone down that. Mark did the last time we were there, and some people did, but that one I don't. At the Church of the Nativity, it's very close going down, but I do recommend going.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So there are, yeah, like Bill said, and some, yeah, you stay on the bus if there are.
And for you guys who are, and ladies who are photography buffs like I am, one of my hobbies, what I recommend is take as many pictures as you can, especially like you'll see some fascinating things in like the Church of the Nativity, if the sun is right, coming through those windows and reflecting off that stone tile floor. And then what you do is don't worry about doing anything, just take a lot of pictures. And then at night, edit them. Get rid of all the ones you don't want. Okay, but just remember this, if you're taking them with your iPhone or with your Samsung or whatever it is, make sure you don't have the cloud turned on because you'll never be able to upload them all. Okay, you're better off leaving them on the phone or buying a stick that you can plug into the phone to download them to a stick or upload them to an iPad. Because the connectivity is not that good over there.
No.
So the data rates are low, you know, especially in a lot of these places that you're going to go to.
It means the speed, not the money.
What's that?
The speed, not the cost of the data rate.
And the money, yeah.
Yeah. The money's
Tiberias, the north side of the Sea of Galilee. okay, on the western shore. We read about Tiberius in John's Gospel. It's very near the Mount of the Beatitudes, Capernaum, Tabitha, Bethsaida, and all those places. And I always found, for me at least, being around the Sea of Galilee is a place that you can experience Jesus in a way that you don't experience him as much in other places, because that sea was there when he was there, that water was there when he was there. Okay. Now, of course, it shrunk significantly, right, from silt filling up the edges. But it was a new city when Jesus was there, when Herod Antipas was there, son of Herod the Great, founded in 20 AD. But this whole area around Galilee is really terrific to experience that. And you're going to do the
Boat ride.
you're going to do the boat ride.
Yeah.
The boat ride is cool. And what's funny about the boat ride, you get on the boat, and if you're from America, they hoist an American flag.
Yes.
If you're from somewhere else, they hoist a flag of that country. Okay? So it's a little commercialized. The boat ride's very commercialized.
But it's something about when you're still out in the middle of the sea, though, it's calm and it's quiet, and we started a tradition with Bishop Gafidi. He started singing Kumbaya, and so now we do that in his honor, and it's quiet and it's beautiful, and you have to be able to overlook the commercialism, like in any city, but particularly here. Just put yourself
Right.
into the moment and just put the other stuff away.
And when we read in the Gospels that this great storm came up and Jesus is walking on water and Peter fails and sinks, the reason we see great storms on the Sea of Galilee is because of where it is. It's in a basin. And so there's big temperature differentials between the desert and the winds that come through off those mountains. So it can get sometimes, I've never been there when it's been very rough, but it can get very rough. And then we have the famous fish.
St.
You're
Peter's.
going to go stop for the famous fish,
Yes,
Galilean fish?
always have the fish with the head on it.
With the head on it.
Yeah. We collect the heads in the
You
middle.
don't have to eat the head.
No. It's very good. It's tilapia.
It's
very
tilapia.
good.
It's
Yeah,
basically
grilled.
freshwater
It's
tilapia.
Very good. It's very good.
Freshwater tilapia.
Yeah, not farm raised. I
Not
don't
farm
think,
raised.
but maybe.
So there's a couple of pages in here about the Sea of Galilee. It's interesting, I'm on 37, about the calling of the 12. You know, it's different in Mark and Matthew's account rather than Luke's account. There are these slight differences, just as we see in the birth narratives, some differences. Are those differences significant? No, just the stories are told a little different. But the one thing that I've always liked about being around the Sea of Galilee is the fact that you really do know that Jesus was there, that he was on the Sea of Galilee, and the disciples were there on the Sea of Galilee. And you really can't say that for other places when you're at the Church of the Nativity and the Church of the Incarnation, okay, or the Holy Sepulchre. Because, you know, the favorite line over there, you're going to hear it 1,000 times, in and or around this place, maybe. So you don't know exactly where you're going to be. But you do know that the Sea of Galilee is there, was there, and that's it. And you're on it. And that's what makes it powerful. The sea was probably bigger then, okay, because it's shrunk a little bit from the till that's washed in, okay? But remember, the Sea of Galilee is about 700 feet below sea level. And then you take the hills around it, so you wind up with wind and that wind from the mountains coming down through the Sea of Galilee, and that's what creates all the waves there. So you get 2,000-foot hills on one side, and you're 480 feet below sea level in the middle, and you can see the differentials you get in that wind moving down there. So that's really, really cool. And I put for those of you who are going, I put the biblical references in here, and what I really encourage you to do, I'm going to say it again, I said it last time, get a Bible, put it on your iPhone or your iPad or your Samsung or whatever that you're taking with you, okay, so that you can, when you get to these places with Jill, she's more than happy to stop, read those passages where they're appropriate. Because what's going to happen, it'll get locked into your brain, and when you hear those passages, everything will click when you come back, which is really what makes it fascinating. More on the Sea of Galilee here. Oh, another thing about the Sea of Galilee, I should have brought, I have some ancient maps. It was a very, there's a highway called the King's Highway. And the King's Highway wound all the way through Turkey and Egypt, around the Sea of Galilee to the south, down in Egypt. And what made it so popular was because of the fishing industry that it had. So it was a good place for people who were on this highway, moving commerce from one end to the other, to stop and rest and to stop and to have food or to get fish or whatever it was. So it's got a lot of major commercial significance, particularly in Jesus' time and later, okay? The other thing is the largest freshwater lake in the whole region. So you had a supply of
Water.
fresh water, you know, which is what made it,
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
another thing is, one of the most visible places in the world of where tectonic plates are meshing together. That whole line from the Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, Dead Sea, all the way down to the Red Sea and so on, is all a line of the tectonic
that's a
plates.
good point. Ron knows about a lot of this stuff because he spent more time there than I have. I spent time there in a previous life selling them F-16s. A little different when you go on a Holy Land pilgrimage, right? But you worked over there with
Yeah,
the,
I was working with drones with the
with
Israeli
drones.
Army.
yeah, you were there, how long were you there?
Oh, several months and off and on, many trips back
Many
and
trips
forth.
back and forth.
They built the drones, but we made them work. Yeah, it was the technology that they were short on, but they
We
built
filled
them,
in those gaps.
and we made them work, and then we sold them to the Army, U.S. Army.
So it's kind of, in my personal life, so this is kind of odd, isn't it? That I said, man, spent many trips over there selling them F-16, selling them weapon systems, and then I go back and on pilgrimages. So, you know, I've kind of seen both sides of it, okay? In Tiberias, you'll find this church. It's called the Church of Multiplication, and it's where the 5,000 were fed, okay? That's supposedly on the Sea of Galilee. We're not sure if it was really there, but it's a great little church, and it's got these fish etched in the floor of these tiles and these mosaics. What's fascinating, a lot of the mosaics you see really go back 1,000 years, 1,500 years. So the mosaics on the floor are the real deal. They're really fascinating to go see. Okay, but this is one place that I particularly like. This Church of the Multiplication, sitting. It's called St. Peter's Primacy, also right here on the lake. When you're there, you will go to the Church of the Beatitudes, and that's where we see the Sermon on the Mount. And by the way, when we read the Sermon on the Mount today, it probably wasn't all written at one time. It was probably bits and pieces that were glued together later. But this is a great place to, it was built by the Byzantines. This is a great place to stand out there under this portico and read the Beatitudes together, or have it read by people circulating, reading one at a time. So it's a fascinating place to be. And when you get to all these historic churches, they all have things, little things you can buy, trinkets and crosses and name it, right? So you can bring, I like to bring the little things back because I can give the people, like when I was running all the acolytes, I would, when there was a new acolyte, I'd always give one of these pieces that was blessed and brought back from, you know, from the Middle East in some way. So the Church of the Beatitudes is another great location to stop at. And of course, Beatitudes means blessing. Okay, and so I put them actually in here for you. There you go. You know, so you can read them right there in case you don't have a Bible with it. And what's interesting about the Beatitudes is they really contrasted the Jewish views. You know, when Jesus said, "I have come to fulfill the law," The Pharisees, particularly, and the Sadducees, said, great, there's 690 laws in the Torah, and there really are. If you want to do some homework, take out the entire Torah, okay, and you'll see all the laws in there, particularly in Leviticus, in the Holiness Code of Leviticus, in 17 to 21, okay? And Jesus says, I have come to fulfill the law. And they all think, this is really great. He's going to fulfill the law. But he didn't quite mean it that way. He contrasted it by saying, to love God and love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So he really boiled it down to those two simple things, but they're the two most difficult to do. Think about that today. You know, if someone says to you, love God and love thy neighbor as thyself, including the thousands that are at the border. Right? I mean, that's really hard for people and for me to do it. So my point was that the Beatitudes are contrasted to the Jewish law. Mount Tabor Transfiguration. What happened to the Transfiguration?
That was up on the mountain where where Peter and them were there, and he
Sees the big
appeared
owl.
with Elijah and Moses, I think.
Yeah. And Peter, of course, was always kind of like the interesting character. Says, "Oh, let's go build huts. Let's go build tents." You know, and Jesus said, "You don't need it. You don't need it, Peter." But we're not sure really whether the Transfiguration took place on Mount Tabor or not. Okay, but you can go up there. It's quite a hike. The church is beautiful, and Jill
Take
can,
little shuttles up.
they have little shuttles that go up there, and you will see lots of Latin inscriptions in all of these places. So one of the things you can do if you don't know, my wife knows Latin, so when she goes with us, she knows Latin. But you can get translators on your phone, Latin to English, okay, because you'll see them all over the place, these Latin inscriptions. Okay. The Basilica of the Annunciation at Mary's Well, these are great because you can walk through these streets to find these places. And there's a lot of interesting pictures along the way, okay? And of course, here's the history of Nazareth I put in here for those. It's an interesting place to walk around. It's where Pope Benedict visited some years ago. Running out of time here. About 60,000 population in Nazareth, and I got all the biblical references in here if you want to go do those. Mount Carmel with Elijah, when he challenged the prophets of Baal to start a fire, remember in Kings, and they couldn't, and he did. So you'll go there, going back into the Hebrew Bible. And finally, Caesarea, Herod's palace in ruins, just north of Tel Aviv. It's where Paul was imprisoned. But also there's some terrific amphitheaters there that are acoustically unbelievable. If you go where the focal point is, you can just talk like we're talking here, and you can hear from any place in the amphitheater, because they're big parabolic reflectors. Okay, you see these aqueducts and what have you. So this is a very cool place to be. So anyway, I think that about wraps it up. What you can do is take a lot of pictures, get a way to offload them onto a stick or onto your iPad, and then when you come back, I won't be with you to do this. What I always do is I make a DVD for people out of them. I use iPhoto, put them all onto a DVD, but then come back and share those pictures together. Matter of fact, share them with the rest of the congregation because they're really, really good. Questions? I wish I was going with you now.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to make a comment that I had the impression that if you could identify anything in the Bible, there was a church built over that spot.
Probably.
And the most questionable one that I ever went to was the church that was over the spot that grew the tree that contributed the wood to Jesus' cross. Now that's really a reach to be able
Yeah, that's a reach.
and so,
That's a reach.
but that's, you know, that was the extreme of a church over every spot.
Yeah.
But I also found an interesting one that was halfway between Jerusalem and Nazareth. Anyway, it was a little church for dedicated to Ruth in the Bible.
One of the greatest love stories in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah.
Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you'll have a great time. Jill knows the place really, really well. And I don't know what forums we'll do next, but we've been doing this now for 5 weeks on and off. We'll figure out what to do, what we're gonna do next. Between Bob Capitini and I, we're thinking that the next thing we're gonna do for Wednesday mornings, and we may do some subsets here if people are interested, is I wanna do an immersion into the book of Genesis, which is probably the most important book we find in the entire Hebrew Bible. Everything is hinged on Genesis. And it's fascinating, so we may do some of that a little later when we finish this if you're interested. Or if you got anything else you'd like to hear about, just let me know. Shoot me an email or a text and we'll have some fun doing that. So I'm going to be busy next week. I won't be here on Walkabout.
You know, I will say that I've said several times, and Ron's heard me say, I would love to see us do a series on science and God again, like we did several years ago. Science.
Oh, Science and God? Yeah, I've done that, yeah.
Yeah, I know. We had a great, maybe it was a Lenten series several years ago, and yeah, you participated, and Ron, and we had Bill, Jacques Lord, we had a geologist, and yeah, it's really
We did a whole
fascinating.
series for Lenten University on quantum physics and God.
Mhm.
And that showing that there really isn't an incompatibility. There's, as a matter of fact, a lot of compatibility. So that's cool stuff. Okay, guys.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.